Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Red Pill Diaries. I'm your host, Rashid, and I'd like to thank each and every one of you who will be joining me later on, and those who are joining me now. We're waiting for Scott Ritter, our guest of the hour, to come on. I'm going to talk to you guys about a few happenings real quick, but I want to make sure that I'm sending a fresh link each time. 1 second. Hold on 1 second. I like to make sure. Yeah. So, hold on 1 second, everybody. I always like to make sure another link comes through, because I know how they're blocking the channel and stuff. So give me one second, okay? And then hopefully we can bypass whatever they're trying to put out. Let's see. All right, we got it. So everybody, hold on. We're gonna chop it up in a minute. So you guys, we have to wait for Scott to get on and everything. And I want to say something. All of this breaking news that is going on. But I want to play. Let me play something real quick. That way I can double check, make sure the links are going through for Scott and everything. Everybody be patient. I want to thank everybody for joining me on Rumble, Odyssey, BitChute, Locals, Twitter, or X, or whatever you want to call it. The Red Pill Journals, the Red Pill Diaries, Twitch, and it's one more. Oh, I don't know if we're on Telegram yet, but thank each and every one of you. Let me give you a little bit of backdrop. I'm going to play a little short clip for you guys, and we'll put everything in perspective. And then we'll wait for Scott to join us, okay? All right.
Much of Gaza is now a wasteland. Nearly 42,000 Palestinians have been killed since the start of Israel's war on the enclave after the October 7th Hamas attack, with most casualties women and children. A mere statistics to many politicians of the Western world, but an existential tragedy for an entire people, with allegations of genocide increasingly growing louder. And the words of concern for Palestinian civilians from some of the top brass of the collective West seem to run contrary to their actions.
The president will hear from Israel how it will conduct its operations in a way that minimizes civilian casualties and enables humanitarian assistance to flow to civilians in Gaza in a way that does not benefit Hamas.
The number of civilian casualties, innocent civilian casualties, continue increasing.
What has happened in Gaza over the past 9 months is devastating. The images of dead children and desperate, hungry people fleeing for safety, sometimes displaced for the second, third, or fourth time.
Just days after Israel began pounding Gaza last year, Washington was reportedly already fully aware of the looming humanitarian catastrophe that would potentially lead to accusations of war crimes against Israel. The Pentagon warned of the potential consequences of the crisis, while Washington continued its public display of solidarity with Israel, with seemingly no red lines when it came to its unwavering support.
Valid concerns were overridden by the White House. The emails, which haven't been reported before, reveal alarm early on in the State Department and Pentagon that a rising death toll in Gaza could violate international law and jeopardize U.S. ties in the Arab world.
As the IDF continued to raise district after district in Gaza, with the civilian death toll rising, Washington continued to stand firm with the notion that Israel, quote, has the right to defend itself. That's despite an international public outcry, with protests around the world and even a genocide case brought against the state in the International Criminal Court. And amid the unprecedented move, Washington was quick to respond. It would have none of it and would do everything in its power to undermine justice being served.
If the ICC is allowed to threaten Israel's leaders, we know that America will be next. We have some very aggressive legislation that we're going to push as quickly as possible. It will impose sanctions.
Washington's duplicitous approach to the Gaza conflict is manifested in its statements of concern for civilians in the enclave and its almost 80-year-old military commitment to Israel, which continues to flourish more than ever. Since its establishment, Israel has received over $300 billion in aid from the U.S., most of which was earmarked for the military. The numbers are set to grow, with the United States announcing a new $8.7 billion aid package to support Israel's ongoing military efforts.
No administration has helped Israel more than I have. None. 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 And I think Bibi should remember that. And whether he's trying to influence the election, I don't know, but I'm not counting on that.
Washington's image, already tarnished in its double-dealing endeavors, took another dive when the U.S. publicly called for a ceasefire in Gaza, while openly dismissing a diplomatic solution to the violence.
We've never wanted to see a diplomatic resolution with Hamas. We are involved in this because we see it as our responsibility as one of the world's powers to try and get involved and reach diplomatic resolutions and try to bring stability.
And the U.S. made its position clear on the international diplomatic arena, vetoing a United Nations Security Council resolution that would have called for a truce. And despite the colorful words of support for humanitarian aid to Gaza, reality on the ground shows otherwise. One example being the $320 million pier built by Washington off the coast of the enclave, which fell apart just 2 weeks after being built. The questionable cost of the so-called Trident Pier raised even more questions when it was revealed it may not have been used solely to facilitate humanitarian aid.
You said Israel is cooperating on this, trying to help, but it seems from what you said, the desperation of people created security issues for the distribution of aid from the assembly area, and that desperation is related to the fact that Israel is shutting down aid routes, right?
So we're shifting from questions to editorializing. I'm going to go ahead and go to somebody else.
The Pentagon was also put on the spot in August when reporters questioned whether the construction was used in Israel's hostage rescue mission, which resulted in more than 200 Palestinian deaths in the process. U.S. officials denied all allegations but admitted that there were Israeli helicopter operations near the pier. And despite growing global outrage against the death and destruction in Gaza, Washington's mantra of Israel's right to self-defense remains unshakable.
Israel has the right to defend itself against terrorism. The way it does so matters.
We support Israel's right to defend itself against terrorism.
So we're committed to ensuring that Israel has what it needs to defend itself.
I will always ensure Israel has the ability to defend itself. My commitment to the security of Israel is unwavering.
Even American doctors working in Gaza during the conflict were horrified by what they saw, painting a bleak and disturbing picture of reality on the ground.
With only marginal exceptions, everyone in Gaza is sick, injured, or both. This includes every national aid worker, every international volunteer, and probably every Israeli hostage, every man, woman, and child. We quickly learned that our Palestinian healthcare colleagues were among the most traumatized people in Gaza, and perhaps in the entire world.
It's unlikely Washington will heed the global condemnation and horror at the events in Gaza over the last year. And as Israel opens a new front with its invasion of Lebanon, behind the shocking statistics of the rising civilian death toll lie hundreds of thousands of broken lives, with no end in sight to U.S. support for Israel and the prospects of peace looking ever more distant.
So we're back on this. And as we wait for Scott, and remember that he's supposed to be here, and he gave me a time that he would be here. And I know that Scott is busy, so he may have the times mixed up a little bit. So we're going to wait, and we're going to chop it up a little bit. That's understandable. I hit him up. Maybe when he sees it, he'll check it and he'll join us. But check this out. There's a lot of things going on. Yeah, a lot to unpack in that video. A lot to unpack in that news clip. So we're going to unpack a little bit of it. Do you notice how when people pose real journalistic questions to the United States, it doesn't have to be the State Department, it doesn't have to be the White House, it could be to the Pentagon. You notice how they throw that back at the journalists, and then they justify themselves ignoring the question So the official, the military official says, so we're going to do an editorial. He never addressed the question at hand that the journalist threw out. And in this video, I hear this mantra that is spewed, this dogma almost, this propaganda almost, that is constantly spewed by the West. Israel has the right to defend itself. That right does not stop at Israel. In words, when they say Israel has a right to defend itself, they're saying in so many words, because this is bizarro speak. This is that double speak, Orwellian double speak. That means that no one else has that inherent right. Only Israel, the United States, the UK, and NATO nations have a right to defend itself. But what's so crazy about that is these are the very nations that are the aggressive, offensively minded nations. I want to ask everybody before I go into a few definitions, because I see on, and I'm apolitical, but I see on right-wing websites, they talk about a UN mandate to invade the United States or to do this and to do that. And they made, I was reading this, as a matter of fact, I was reading this last night, and as they were making a call to quote unquote patriots. Oh, Scott is in the booth. And I'm gonna finish this thought real quick, and I'm gonna bring Scott in, quote unquote patriots to stand up against international occupation. And they never in their mind say, well, what about all of the hundreds of bases that the United States has in other countries around the world? Why is it so pertinent, and why is it allowed for America to occupy other nations, but immediately it's unpatriotic to allow any other nation in the United States? With that said, let me bring my guy in, the busiest man on YouTube, Scott Ritter. How's it going, Scott?
All right. I apologize for my tardiness. It's just this day has become a very hectic day, so forgive me.
Scott, you know, that's water under the bridge, my friend. Scott, I was talking about the Orwellian double speak. I was looking at it, and this will relate to the U.S. policy also when we talk. Why is it that just a hint of the UN deploying troops here or any nation deploying troops here gets everybody in an uproar, but nobody is in that same uproar for hundreds of bases around the world that the United States has in other foreign countries?
I mean, the simple answer is American exceptionalism. You know, we can do anything we want. It's the rules-based international order, and we wrote the rules. And so why would we ever undergo a period of self-critique where we question the wisdom of our actions or the legality of our actions? We don't live in a world that is a law-based system. We should. I mean, the United Nations Charter, when combined with the Constitution of the United States, creates, a foundation of law, principles of law, de facto law, de jure law. But we don't care. I mean, the U.S. government here in the United States on a daily basis violates First Amendment rights of Americans, Fourth Amendment rights of Americans. It doesn't matter. The Constitution is not a rule book to be followed, but a set of principles that are inconvenient to the way the U.S. government seeks to govern. And it's the same with the international community. We created the United Nations, but the United Nations is only useful to us if it's doing our bidding at our direction. The moment the United Nations starts to operate, in accordance with the principles of its charter or at the direction of other member states, we take objection to it. We are the exceptional nation. We firmly believe that not only are we exceptional, but we're indispensable. That the world literally can't function without us. And that's basically what underpins our behavior. Americans have to start realizing, and this is a very difficult challenge to a spoiled people like ourselves, that we are only 320, 340 million strong in a world of several billion. That when we speak of humanity, there are people around the world who, have the same dreams, have the same hopes, have the same desires. We don't call them Americans, but we should call them fellow human beings, and we should respect their wants, their hopes, their dreams as much as we respect our own. But we don't. We operate in total disregard for the rest of the world. The rest of the world exists to serve us. And this is why you won't hear any complaints among most Americans about the plethora of military bases we have put around the world. And yet, God forbid, the United Nations decides that they want to go out and intervene to mitigate against some of the many conflicts that we're responsible for precipitating. That becomes a problem.
So now we have the news that the Hamas leader was killed, and we even see some video that may lend credence to that. Where is this going? Because it seems like the United States is trying to play both sides of the fence and trying to pretend like Israel is running roughshod without the United States having any information on what's going on before it takes place. Plausible deniability, and then continues to let Israel bomb Syria, Lebanon, Palestine, and build up for a war with Iran. Where will this be a regional conflagration, and will it devastate Israel?
Well, it is a regional conflagration already. I mean, we have fighting in Gaza, we have fighting in the West Bank, we have fighting in Lebanon. Some reports indicate that the Radwan forces of Hezbollah have counterattacked and are actually taking the fight to Israeli territory. The militias in Syria and Iraq are firing rockets against Israel. Israel's bombing their targets. The Ansarallah movement in Yemen is firing missiles and drones against shipping, affecting a blockade of Israel, as well as striking Israel. And of course, Iran has already carried out two major missile attacks against Israel and is prepared to carry out more if Israel seeks to escalate. So we're already in a regional conflagration. It's one, though, that has been managed carefully since this conflict began in October 7th, 2023, to try and prevent it from spinning out of control totally. And it appears that we're heading in the direction of spinning out of control. You mentioned at the start about the United States. We need to basically start being honest about something. The United States cannot be trusted on any issue when it comes to Israel and Palestine. Any issue. And that includes the direct issues of Israeli-Palestinian relations, but also the peripheral issues, such as what's going on with Hezbollah, what's going on with Iran. We sell ourselves as some sort of a credible negotiator, a moderator. We can get between. We are 110% behind the Israelis. 110%. Everything Israel does, the idea that Israel is doing things that we're not aware of and we haven't approved, everything Israel does is done with the knowledge beforehand of the United States and the permission of the United States. That is a statement of fact. This includes the assassination of Hassan Nasrallah and the assassination, or I can't call it an assassination because he died in combat, of Yahya Sinwar. We knew about this. We are facilitating this. When you have the head of U.S. Central Command come out, and this is a military command responsible for Israel, praising this, calling Hamas a terrorist organization, Sinwar a terrorist, praising this, knowing that American intelligence resources were actively being used in concert with Israel to hunt this man down and kill him, how could you ever trust America again to be a middleman for peace? America is not about peace. We're about war, we're about death, we're about violence. That's it. To the extent that we as a nation speak about the desire for a Palestinian state, that's not because we suddenly woke up and said we want a Palestinian state. It's because the reality of the world's negative reaction to what Israel has done with the Palestinians, committing genocide, the reality has come back and bit us in the butt. We have to respond to this. to be seen as wanting this, so that we don't lose absolute, we lose all support in the world today. Next week, there's a meeting in Kazan, Russia, the BRICS summit, and 32 heads of state are traveling to Russia, where they're going to talk about expanding this multilateral summit and facilitating the transition away from, singularity of American control, American hegemony, towards this consensus-driven multipolarity. This is a earth-shattering event. This is one of those historic events that people will look back on and say, wow, that's what happened. This is the Bretton Woods of our time. Bretton Woods being the 1944 meeting in which the United States took the lead in redefining global currency, global economy, all to be operated under the direction of the United States through the World Bank, International Monetary Fund, the dominance of the dollar. Bretton Woods was a big deal. BRICS is a bigger deal. It's the end of Bretton Woods. It's the end of American hegemony. And what it's done is it's created this gravitational pull to what we call the global South, the developing world. The United States has always sought to control the global South and to direct them how to operate. They're saying no, and one of the reasons why they're saying no is because of Israel and America's blind support for Israeli genocide. We've lost the world. They've gravitated. So we have to try to win them back. And so now you get, Biden administration and others, saying, well, we got to do this, we got to do that. No, we're not going to do any of that. All we want to do is help Israelis kill Palestinians. That's all we want to do. We don't care about the Palestinians. If we did, we wouldn't have allowed this to happen. Don't buy into anything about how we want to get humanitarian aid into Gaza. We don't want that to happen. And if we do allow it to happen, it will be done under conditions which, only, further the suffering of the Palestinian people. The only way the Palestinian people emerge from this is with a free and independent Palestine. That's it. Sinwar was a child of the camps. His parents were from Ashkelon. In 1948, his parents were forcibly evicted from their homes and sent to a concentration camp called Gaza, in something that is known as the Nakba, the catastrophe. Sinwar was born in 1962, a child of the camps. He was born into the notion that you will resist the Israeli occupier. In 1987, he helped found Hamas. He led the security arm of Hamas, the Majd, and his number one goal was to kill Israeli informers, Israeli spies. He said the only way Palestine can be free is if it's free of, what the Israelis are doing. And one of the things the Israelis were doing was infiltrating the ranks of the Palestinians. So he purged them. He was arrested, sentenced to 4 life sentences. He spent 22 years in jail. When he was freed from jail, he got married and he had children. One of his honorifics is Abu Ibrahim. He's the father of Ibrahim, his oldest son. He has 3 children. He swore that his children and the generation of his children would not be condemned to a life of being children of the camps, that one day his children would know what it meant to be a Palestinian living in a free Palestine. And this is what he was struggling for. This is what he was fighting for. And this is what America is against. America is against this because we 100% support Zionist Israel, whose sole purpose is to create a unified Israeli nation from the river to the sea. But which river are we talking about? Because when you listen to some Israelis, they're talking about from the Euphrates to the Nile. It's not the Jordan to the Mediterranean. It's from the Euphrates to the Nile and everything in between. Hundreds of millions of Arabs, according to these people, should be forcibly displaced from their homes because it all belongs to Israel. This is an insult to humanity. This is an insult to civilized, the civilized world. But it's an insult the United States continues to perpetuate by supporting Israel.
Well, why do you think the United States has, and the UK has gone so head first into this idea of only Israel has the right to defend itself, and they're trying to delegitimize anything that is Palestinian?
Because we've been captured by the pro-Israeli lobby. The pro-Israeli lobby has captured, most of the the mechanisms of influence. They have control over mass media. Again, people, it's not anti-Semitic to speak the truth. Okay, the pro-Israeli lobby controls American and British mass media. That's it. You want to challenge me on that? Try. You can't, because it won't work. They have bought our political leaders. Again, guys, come on. AIPAC says they're spending $100 million to buy Congress this election cycle, and they've openly bragged about it. Israeli leaders mock you, mock every American listening. They mock you because they say you don't matter. They own you. You've sold out. They make the decisions, not you, not we, the people. They. And this is the truth. And as a result, both the United States and Great Britain have, embarked on policies which are unquestionably supportive of the agenda of Israel, to the detriment of the United States, as I've said, and to the detriment of the United Kingdom. We are paying a huge price around the world. Ambassadors from around the world have written letters to Tony Blinken, the Secretary of State, saying, you might as well shut down this embassy because nobody's talking to us because of what we're doing with Israel. We've lost this nation. We've lost this region. We've lost the world. Why is America committing collective suicide on behalf of Israel? Because Israel, and this again might get me in trouble, but I just challenge people to prove me wrong on this. Israel isn't a friend. They're not an ally. Israel's a parasite. And we have a parasitic relationship with Israel. We are the host, and Israel has attached itself to the host and is consuming the host to keep itself alive. That's the reality of it. They don't care about us. They attacked the USS Liberty in June 1967. Jonathan Pollard was an American Jew who spied for Israel, took the crown jewels of the American intelligence community, a collection of information about how we intercepted communications around the world, a document that cost us billions of dollars to put together, and he gave it to the Israelis, who then sold it to the Soviet Union, not for money, but for immigrants. They wanted more Jews to be released to come to Israel. So they gave the Soviets the crown jewels of American intelligence that were stolen from America by Jonathan Pollard. The number one intelligence threat to the United States doesn't come from Russia, China, Iran, North Korea. The number one intelligence threat against the United States comes from Israel. Israel spies on us more than anybody else. And they use a variety of mechanisms to gain influence by buying us through political donations, by corrupting our people and blackmailing them. This is what Israel does. They are not a friend. In fact, if you want to look at Israel honestly, Israel is the enemy of the United States, the greatest enemy of the United States.
So do you think with this policy of domination at all costs with the U.S., the UK, and Israel, do you believe that this will be the match that sparks the regional conflagration? I'm talking about on a massive scale, and will it lead to the demise and downfall completely and the complete destruction of Israel?
First of all, no one should want the violent destruction of Israel, because if Israel goes down violently, it will take the region down violently. Israel has nuclear weapons. They have something called the Samson option. And the Samson option is, again, derived from the biblical story of Samson and Delilah. And at the end, Samson brought the temple down when they were threatening him to be executed. He said, everybody goes down with me. That's what the Samson option is. So we don't want that. That's bad for everybody, especially, for instance, the Palestinians. It's bad for the Iranians. It's bad for Hezbollah. It's bad for all the resistance against this evil entity known as Israel. And the Iranians and others recognize this. So too does Hamas and Hezbollah. They are looking at something different. They're looking at Israel collapsing itself from within to create the conditions where Israel can no longer sustain itself as a modern nation state. And you do this in a variety of ways. War is an extension of politics by other means. That's something Karl von Clausewitz has imparted on us in the wisdom that's contained in his book, The Art of War, or On War, I think it was. The Art of War is Sun Tzu. But so we shouldn't be examining a conflict solely based upon what happens on the battlefield. That we have to understand that the military part is just one component of a larger struggle that has economic and political aspects to it. One of the key strategies of the resistance is to strangle Israel economically, and they're doing that. Ansarallah's ongoing attack on shipping has caused the southern port of Eilat to shut down. Israel took a $67 billion economic hit last year. Can't sustain that. They're going to take an even bigger hit this year. Tourism, a key aspect of Israel's economy, is down 90%. Nobody wants to visit Israel. There's no economic investment taking place. To show you the devastation of Israel's economic potential, in September of 2023, September 9th, I believe, Joe Biden was in India, and he made an announcement. He said that he is announcing the creation or the initiation of something he called the India, Middle East, European Economic Corridor. That is basically the dream is to load containers on a ship in Mumbai, have that ship sail and land in Dubai, offload the containers. They will get on a train that will then take them through railways that connect the United Arab Emirates with Saudi Arabia, with Jordan, with Israel, and then they'll be put on another ship that'll sail them to a port in Greece, connecting them with Europe. This was supposed to be the American counter to the Chinese Belts and Roads Initiative. We won't go too far down there except to point out that all the ports I mentioned, the Chinese made them possible. Haifa, multi-$100 million renovation. The port in Greece is a Chinese-controlled port. The railways that they're going to connect are built by China, but that's okay. This is Joe Biden's vision of countering the Chinese. But the important thing is that Benjamin Netanyahu came out that same day and said, this is the single most important event in Israel's history, besides the creation of Israel. He said, this will go down as the greatest moment in Middle East history and Israeli history, because it is the beginning of the birth of the Israel that always wanted to be, the Israel that had broken free of the chains of conflict. Because a key to make all of this work, Israel has to have normal relations with the players. And this meant Saudi Arabia. Israel was on the cusp of finalizing an agreement with Saudi Arabia that would lead them down the path of normalization. And when we speak of normalization, remember, it's done under the auspices of what's known as the Abraham Accord. The Abraham Accords, if you look at what it says, it means that there will never be a Palestinian state, because the Abraham Accord allow for ongoing Israeli settlement in the West Bank. There's no process of reversal. It just means the death of Palestine. And all the Arab nations, if this plan goes through, are saying, we're okay with that. Saudi Arabia, we're okay with that. United Arab Emirates, we're okay with that. Jordan, we're okay with that, because they are looking for economic prosperity. And Israel is looking to become the hub of all of this, a technology hub, an economic leader, a regional leader now. And so Netanyahu was just overjoyed. He even went to the United Nations and made a similar presentation to the international community, bragging about how this would transform everything. And in his arrogance, holding up a map that showed Greater Israel, meaning no Palestinian state. On October 7th, Sinwar ended all that. He launched an attack that humiliated the Israelis and began this conflict where now no one is talking about the India, Middle East, European Economic Corridor. It's finished. And this is part of the process of the economic collapse of Israel. Israel can't sustain this. Look at what Israel's talking about being their number one goal and objective with Hezbollah in the north, to return 60,000 settlers to their homes in the north who had to leave their homes because of the constant bombardment coming out of Hezbollah. They will never go home, not until there's a ceasefire, and not until that ceasefire is linked to the creation of a Palestinian state that Benjamin Netanyahu and his ruling coalition say they will never agree to. And Israel can't beat Hezbollah. They're getting beaten by Hezbollah as we speak. Wait a minute, Scott, didn't they kill Hassan Nasrallah? That's not Hezbollah. That's the leader of Hezbollah. But Hezbollah is a resistance organization with built-in resilience, as Hezbollah's command says today. Every one of our leaders has a deputy and every one of those deputies has a deputy. And every time you kill him, the deputy steps up because he's ready to go right now. You will never, ever prevent this resistance organization known as Hezbollah from carrying out its task. And the proof today is the ongoing death and destruction that Hezbollah is inflicting on the Israeli forces trying to push into Lebanon, and the fact that Hezbollah continues to strike back at Israel on a daily basis. There's nothing Israel can do to stop this. They can't win this war. Hamas is the same way. You killed Sinwar. Sinwar was a dead man walking. He always said so. He used to go and speak at a mosque on Friday prayers and say, "Here I am. I'm here, speaking." And then he would say, "I'm walking home." And he'd walk the streets, daring the Israelis to assassinate him. He knew that was his fate. He was going to die at the hands of the Israelis. But it's irrelevant. Look what they've just done. They've taken a man and they've turned him into a martyr. I mean, the dumbest thing in the world for the Israelis was to release that video they did of the drone going in and showing Sinwar sitting there, one arm amputated, legs mangled, fatally wounded, throwing a stick at the thing, dressed in combat clothes. This wasn't a billionaire hiding down in the tunnels, running scared, using his family and hostages as a human shield. This was a man's man out in the streets, fully armed, leading Hamas fighters in battle against the Israelis. That is how he will forever be known. And so Israel lost. Israel has lost everywhere. There's not one place Israel has won. Assassinating people is not victory. It's a gimmick. It's like saying that you want to win the Super Bowl, but all you have is a playbook full of trick plays. You can only do the hook and ladder so many times. You know, you can only do certain trick plays so many times. You don't win championships with trick plays. You win it with fundamentals. And the resistance has the fundamentals because they are deeply fracturing Israeli society. As we speak, Israeli soldiers are demonstrating, saying, we don't want to go to Lebanon because they recognize Lebanon for what it is, a death trap. As we speak, we have hundreds of thousands of Israelis who despise Benjamin Netanyahu because he can't get a ceasefire to get the hostages back. We have other hundreds of thousands who hate him because he's tried to change the judicial system within Israel. The Israeli president, in the lead up to October 7th, without knowing that October 7th was going to happen, said that Israel's in danger of imminent civil war, not civil unrest, not civil disruption, civil war. That's Israelis picking up guns, killing Israelis. That's the Israeli president saying this in the weeks leading up to October 7th. None of those conditions have gone away. Israel is fatally wounded, fatally wounded. So you don't want a conflagration that allows Israel to execute the Samson option. Let Israel kill itself. And that's what Israel's doing. Israel is killing itself right now. Every day that goes by, Israel is dying. They're losing the support of the world. Look, there's going to be headlines. People are going to cheer Sinwar's death. But in a week, they're going to wish he was alive because dead Sinwar is going to motivate the Palestinians to resist more than he did living. Because the example he set is an example that Palestinians now will embrace. They don't fear death. They welcome death if it comes from resisting Israel. And they will continue to resist until they die. The goal of Sinwar was to ensure that this generation of Gazans who were born in imprisonment will be the last generation that can be called children of the camps. That the future generations of Palestinians will be children who were born in a free and independent Palestine. And that's what they're working for. And you don't get a free and independent Palestine by promoting a war that's going to destroy the entire region. You do it by letting the Zionist entity kill itself. And that's what Israel's doing, killing itself.
But do you think that Israel will hit Iran? And we've already heard what Iran said. No matter what Israel does, they're going to hit back even harder. And if they hit again, they were going to escalate harder. I was listening to Mohammed Morandi last night, and he was talking about it does not matter if it's a pinprick. Iran will hit back and hit back harder. And if Israel hits again, they will hit back even harder than that. So with that said, how do you see this thing coming out? Because we see Benjamin Netanyahu is trying to co-opt the entire Middle East to prevent himself from going to prison. And he is trying to use the U.S. as a tripwire to to go head to head with Iran. How is this thing going to play out in your eyes?
You know, it's really hard as a geopolitical analyst to answer this question, and the reason why is that the answer isn't derived from geopolitical analysis. The answer is derived from a psychological evaluation of Benjamin Netanyahu. This is a man who has decided that he is willing to sacrifice the security of his fellow citizens of his nation for his own personal political benefit. He's a disgraced politician who's been charged credibly with multiple acts of corruption. If he hadn't won this last election to become prime minister, they would have arrested him. He would have gone on trial and been found guilty of corruption, spent the rest of his pathetic life as a fat, balding man in jail. That's who he is. That's what he should be. We should all look at him and say, you're a criminal, because he is a criminal. I guess you're innocent until proven guilty, but when you actively evade justice the way he is, it sort of speaks for itself. He came in as prime minister, and one of the first things he did is seek to rewrite the basic law that would turn the courts over to the Israeli parliament, which was controlled by his party, so that the parliament would be able to appoint the judges, and the parliament would be able to shut down courts that were doing things that they didn't agree with. And as long as Netanyahu's party was in power, this meant that Netanyahu would never be held accountable, ever. That's what he wanted. That didn't work. Hundreds of thousands of Israelis went to the street. The prime minister, the president warned about a civil war over this issue. But this is who Netanyahu is. He's a dirtball. He's a failed leader who is responsible for the failures of security that took place on October 7th. Under normal conditions, a leader that had failed to this level would either commit suicide or resign. But no, he continued on. He needs to stay in power, but he can only stay in power if he reverses the shame of October 7th. And so he's seeking to do that by trying to defeat Hamas politically and militarily, which is impossible to do. Now when he was confronted with the fact that he can't defeat Hamas, instead of admitting that, resigning, committing suicide, or running away, he expanded the war against Hezbollah. Now he's losing that. So he's expanding the war against Iran. It's suicide for Israel to go to war with Iran. There's a couple of reasons why. One, Iran has the ability, as Mr. Morandi has said, to destroy Israel's civilian infrastructure. It's not protected. It's very limited in size. Only a handful of targets are needed to be terminated when Israel goes into the Stone Age. You blow up 5 power plants, Israel has no electricity. You blow up 5 desalination plants, Israel has no fresh water. You blow up distribution centers, pumping stations, and Israel literally ceases to function as a modern nation state. And they can do this with several hundred missiles. They're capable of firing a salvo of over 1,000 missiles. They can reload that, have another 1,000 downrange. Israel, on the other hand, doesn't have the ability to do similar levels of damage to Iran. So even if Israel were to attack Iran and bomb certain targets, they can't stop the missiles. In fact, any aircraft of Israel that went and bombed Iran, by the time they got back to Israel, may not have any Israel left to come back to. Now, people would say, well, then Israel would use nuclear weapons. Well, I hate to break the news to all those people, especially Donald Trump, my man Donald. Iran can never be allowed to have a nuclear weapon. Too late, Donnie, baby. They got it. Same thing to old Joe Biden. Iran will never be allowed to have a nuclear weapon. Too late, man. They got it. They may not have an actual nuclear device, but they got the weapon. They can have the weapon on a missile ready to fire in a matter of days, and there's nothing you can do to stop them if the political decision is made to execute that capability. And it appears that the Iranians have made that political decision. They're just waiting for the final trigger. You've had multiple statements coming out of Iran since April that says that the fatwa, which was issued by first Ali Khomeini and now Ali Khamenei, you guys understand what I'm saying. The first one was the founder of the Islamic Republic, and after his death, he was replaced by the second one. They say that nuclear weapons are, haram, forbidden under Islam. But they also have come out and said, the thing about fatwas is that they can be re-examined based upon new conditions. And some of those new conditions would be that Iran and Islamic Republic is under existential threat from foreign powers like Israel, who threaten to use nuclear weapons against Iran. So, and again, when you talk about attacking Iran's nuclear infrastructure, like Trump has said, it's the good stuff. You got to hit the nuclear stuff. It's the good stuff. But he knows what that means. It's not a conventional weapon. You can't destroy it with a conventional weapon. That's why Donald Trump, when he was the president, redid the American Nuclear Employment Plan, creating two new categories of nuclear weapons, a B-61 gravity bomb that has the ability to penetrate deep before the nuclear weapon goes off, collapsing the structure, or the low-yield nuclear warhead, the W-76-2, which is loaded onto a Trident missile on an Ohio-class submarine, which combined with the kinetic impact of a high-speed warhead hitting and the nuclear charge that would follow is designed to collapse that. Those are the only two weapon systems in the American arsenal that could take out the Firdos underground nuclear facility, where the most modern centrifuge cascades have been installed. These are the cascades that would be used to convert 60% uranium hexafluoride into 96% uranium hexafluoride, and then that would be turned into metal, and that uranium metal would put into a simple gun device on a warhead and fired against Israel. It works 100% of the time. Israel disappears. This is the fact. So we're threatening them. Israel to attack would have to use nuclear weapons. They don't have any conventional weapons. So anytime people talk about attacking Iran's nuclear infrastructure, they're talking about hitting Iran with nuclear weapons. Now you have everybody talking about hitting Iran's nuclear infrastructure. Iran is saying, I guess that green lights us to build nuclear weapons. So they've built a nuclear weapon. I can pretty much guarantee you that right now in Iran, there are 3 to 5 warheads of the gun design. Gun design is where you take your uranium, which when you compress it together would create critical mass. You'll get fission. Boom, there it goes. You take a big chunk of it and you put it in the base. You take a slug out of it and you put it here on a barrel. And as it comes in towards its target, a detonator fires this like a bullet, bam, into there. And as it hits, bam, it goes critical, boom. It's not the most efficient thing. You certainly don't get the total, nuclear potential. That slug there could probably go up to 50 kilotons, but because of the inefficiency of design, you're only going to get 20. But 20 is enough to blow the hell out of Tel Aviv, Haifa, Beersheba, any other Israeli city. You get 3 to 5 nuclear devices going off over Israel's major cities, and Israel is gone forever as a nation state. And that's Iran's capability right now. And there's nothing anybody can do to stop it. It's irreversible. It can't be reversed. In fact, the only hope you have of reversing it is to get Iran to voluntarily disarm. But Iran's not going to do that until Israel's nuclear program's on the table as well. And does the United States have what it takes to tell the Israelis, you got to get rid of the bomb? Maybe one day we'll elect a president who can do that. But right now we don't have a president. The last president that tried to do that took a bullet in the head. His name was John F. Kennedy.
Well, Scott, and I know time is limited, but if we're looking at that situation like that, and we know that Israel is bankrupt financially, isn't that also a microcosm of the U.S., the UK, and Europe too? Because look at their situation that they now find themselves in economically. So if we're looking at a collapse of Israel, aren't we also looking at the collapse of Israel's protectors and founders?
First of all, Israel is not a major economic power, so we could easily look. If I go to the gym, not as often as I need to, but I do go to the gym. I do go to the gym and work out because I want to keep the body healthy. I'm trying to keep it in shape so that I can keep functioning for as many years as God has planned for me on this planet. But if I get a tumor, it's attached to me and feeding off my body and it's going to kill me. I don't exercise to keep that tumor healthy. I got to remove the tumor. I got to go get surgery. Boom. And then after that words, I continue to exercise and recover from that. Israel is a tumor attached to the United States. America doesn't need Israel to survive. The tumor needs the American host to survive. We can easily detach the Israeli tumor and live our lives. Our economic problems aren't linked at all to Israel. Israel's survival is linked to the American ability to continue to underwrite their military and their economy. So again, Israel can collapse more like a cancer. I'm not disagreeing with you, man. We come up with any number of ways to call Israel. I've called it a cancerous tumor many times. So what we can survive that. We don't need Israel. Israel needs us. But I think the sooner we recognize that Israel's going to try, like any tumor, any parasitic entity, it's going to consume the host in order to survive. So Israel will desperately suck the life out of us to maintain their viability. But what's happening to America economically is a much bigger problem than Israel. This gets down to BRICS and the danger of BRICS. Because you see, we live in a country that, again, here I'm getting into dangerously thin ice. I am not an economist. I didn't play one on TV, and I didn't stay at a Holiday Inn Express, so I can't even fake it properly. But I do know enough to know that there's something we used to call, again, people correct me if I'm wrong, and I probably am wrong. I think it was MP3 reports or something of that nature. But basically, when we printed money, we said this is how much money we printed, because ostensibly we needed to know how much money is in circulation in the economy. You want to know that if you're putting a value to the dollar and you say this value is derived from this. But a couple of years ago, we just stopped issuing that report. We just print money. We just print it. We just print. There's no control of it. We print it anytime we want to, for any reason we want to, and it's just done willy-nilly by the Fed. The only way that we keep this is like a Ponzi scheme, man. I mean, it really is. It's fraud because we're pretending that the dollar has value, but what is that value attached to? It's attached to a fraudulent scheme where we've convinced the world that the dollar is your reserve currency. And so long as the world is willing to rely on the dollar, they prop up confidence in the dollar. So people pretend that the dollar actually has value, that it's attached to something meaningful. Meanwhile, we have, $36 trillion in debt and growing. We just had our debt grow $500 billion in the last month. $500 billion. That's because we're printing money, man. We're printing money. I mean, I'd love to have a money tree. I mean, could you imagine the vacation we go on if, hey, go out and shake your tree a little bit. I'm going to shake mine, see what you get, and we'll come together and we'll go to Hawaii, rent an entire island. Why not? We can afford it because it's just money coming off a money tree. We don't have to earn it. We don't have to work. Well, that's the U.S. government. They tax us to death, but they're going to, all these people out there, earning tips. We hired 88,000 IRS agents to come after people that aren't reporting $600 in tips, as if that $600 is going to make or break the American economy. My God, no, we can just print $500 billion anytime we want. But the dollar, because of our policies, when we sanction people, I'll give you an example. I'll let my good friend Marco Rubio, the senator from Florida, I
actually have that clip, Scott. I have the clip that
you know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. You want to play it? You got it. Yeah. Can you call it up? Or
let me pull it up right now. Let me see if it's still on.
Let's let Marco Rubio, our guest on this episode, explain best why sanctions, why America likes sanctions, and why the world.
Where is it? Don't tell me I erased it last night. Hold on, Scott. I know exactly what you're talking about.
All right. Well, I'll do my best to do my best Marco Rubio impression. But basically, he was talking about Brazil, and Brazil was going to stop doing trade in the dollar. It was going to jump over and start doing trade using the yuan and other currencies. And he said, you can't do that. If Israel stops using if Brazil stops using the dollar, then we can't sanction them. Do you see the prison that has been built by the United States? If you stop using the dollar, we can't control you. You have to use the dollar, not because it's to your economic benefit, not because it's convenient, not because of all the reasons why you'd want to use the dollar. If you stop using the dollar, we can't control you. And that would hurt our feelings, because America is all about control. It was one of the most brutally honest things any senator said, and nobody picked up on it. I mean, you did. I did, but most Americans are like, okay. But you have to understand the world picked up on it. They know what's going on. So the world's dumping the dollar. That's one of the things that's happening in BRICS, although they come out.
Brazil,
there we go.
In our hemisphere, largest country in the Western Hemisphere south of us, cut a trade deal with China. They're going to, from now on, do trade in their own currencies, get right around the dollar. They're creating a secondary economy in the world, totally independent of the United States. We won't have to talk about sanctions in 5 years because there'll be so many countries transacting in currencies other than the dollar that we won't have the ability to sanction them.
Now, this drive toward...
Where? I mean, good Lord. I mean, at least he's honest. At least he's honest. You got to respect that aspect of it. But think of the arrogance that's built into that statement. The arrogance. But that's what the rules-based international order is all about. And that's what the Russians, Chinese, Indians, and now the entire world appears to be moving away from. And that's what's going to kill America, not Israel. It's not about what Israel's doing, etc. It's that, the loss in confidence of the dollar. And then we just get down into the basics of the economy. Again, I'm not one. I don't pretend to be one. But I do know this. If my car breaks, because this happens frequently, I'm not one of these millionaires that buys new cars every year. I got a 2013 car and I got a 2021 car. And every once in a while, they just go hiccup, and because, again, I don't have the deepest bank account in the world, if I take it to a mechanic, those guys know what they're doing, but they charge you because they know what they're doing. And I'm like, well, I don't have enough money this month because Maverick had to go in and get vaccines and Iceman swallowed a damn piece of something that had to go get, dogs are expensive, man. They're very expensive habit. And so, you're like, I don't have money. I got enough. I can go to, auto parts or the AutoZone, and I can get on YouTube and Google, how to fix this. And it says, all you have to do is this, get this part, do this. All right. So I go there, I buy the part, I bring it back, and I do it. I can do that. I could go to, Walmart, and I can go to Price Chopper and buy food, and I can buy clothes, and I can buy the stuff that makes my house work. I know I can do that. I also know that all that stuff comes in. It's not made here locally. It's not like it says made in Albany on it. It says made in China, or made in Pakistan, or made in any place but the United States. And most of those places are overseas. They require ships to bring them in on containers. And, we just dodged a dock worker strike. If they stop, they stop offloading the containers, all our stores go empty overnight, and we can't do that. Or if the Chinese just say, screw it, we're not shipping to you anymore. I don't get to fix my car because I don't even get to fix it at home. I can't even take it to the shop because the same parts I'm buying at AutoZone, he has to buy. He doesn't have parts anymore. America doesn't produce anything anymore. We can't even build military weapons anymore because the components that we need for these are built overseas. And when people say, well, we're just not going to build them for you anymore, we're not going to provide that to you anymore, that's problematic. This is the fatal flaw of America. We stop being self-sufficient. It's one of the reasons why we're so angry at Russia. We hate Russia. You want to know why we hate Russia? Because they're self-sufficient. They got all the oil they need. Well, so do we. But but we've linked our oil to a global economy so that if we disrupt oil production in the Middle East, the price goes up, the speculation goes up, and then we're dead. We're done. But Russia can build anything it wants to. One of the things that the sanctioning of Russia did is, yes, early on, Russia went to China, went to India, and they did deals to get in components they need. The Russians aren't stupid. The Russians sat there and said, we got to build the capability here in Russia. And they have. They've built it. Russia makes things now. They make what they need now. And what they don't need, they have friendly relations with China that's not based upon exploitation and dominance, and it's based upon economic common sense. The Russians do it better than we do. You know who the strongest capitalist nation in the world is today? China. They're kicking our butts. They do it right. The only thing we know how to do is go to war, and we can't even do that right anymore because we can't win a war anymore because it's become too expensive for us to win a war because the military-industrial complex long ago stopped being about building things to defend America, and it's about building things to make the shareholder money, make them richer. This is what is going to be the end of America, because we no longer function upon any logic, anything that makes sense economically. And once, like any Ponzi scheme, once you puncture that and people realize that the emperor has no clothes, the collapse will be real, it will be immediate, and it will be disastrous.
And Scott, before we go, can we get 3 questions from the audience for you? Because I've seen 2 questions from the audience, and I need 1 question to ask you to wrap it up, Scott.
Sure. Yep.
All right. This is from Psalms Malachi. He says, Scott, in a count of 0 to 10, what is the possibility of Hamas surviving in this war? And how long, in your observation, can they still hold on? He said they can still, but I believe he meant, can they still hold
on? 10 out of 10 that Hamas will survive this war. Hamas is an ideology. It's an idea. It's a notion. It's a conception. And you can't kill that. Hamas, especially after the heroic death of Yahya Sinwar, is now in the hearts of every Palestinian. Seared in their minds, seared in their hearts. You can never, Hamas and Palestine are one and the same. So unless you kill every single Palestinian in the world, Israel's apparently willing to do that, you will never get rid of Hamas. Hamas is Palestine, and you'll never be able to separate the two, which means it will hold on in perpetuity. Even if somehow Israel manages to defeat Hamas politically and militarily today, I don't think they will, Hamas will still live as a resistance in the souls of the Palestinians. Sinwar will never be forgotten. His death is a heroic death, and he's now a martyr that motivates and will motivate generations to come if necessary. So, and it's not just me saying this. Israeli generals have said this. They said you can't defeat Hamas because it's an idea. And as long as the idea exists, we can't defeat it. So Hamas will survive. And I believe, again, because Israel is in the process of committing suicide, Hamas will prevail.
The next question is by Hennick Hildmariam. It says, Scott, do you think that Netanyahu succeeded diverting the world's eyes away from his genocide on Gaza with his confrontation and conflict with Iran and Lebanon?
Well, I think he wanted to. That was the goal of expanding this conflict, is to divert attention away from his failures in Gaza, only to create new failures with Hezbollah and Iran. The problem is that Gaza just doesn't go away. Israel does stupid things. I mean, it's not stupid, it's criminal. I mean, sometimes, and I hope your audience understands this, I get a little glib, and I make jokes and I make light, because otherwise I'd have to go drink a bottle of bourbon to drown out the insanity in just the thoughts in my head, because what's happening to the people of Gaza is incomprehensible. As a human being, you can't comprehend what Israel is doing and what the world's allowing to be done to the Palestinians. Every time Israel wants Gaza to disappear, we just have to, and this is one of the geniuses of what Sinwar set in motion. The way to defeat Israel is simply to let Israel be Israel. By starting what he did on October 7th, Operation Al-Aqsa Flood, all Sinwar did is say, we've now created the conditions for Israel to be Israel, to show the world the truth about what this apartheid Zionistic state is. That is a murderous, genocidal entity, a cancer on the world. And so the Israelis take every opportunity to prove this. They bomb a refugee camp, burning alive people on video. And everybody saw it. And everybody knows what that is. Which means that rather than suppressing Gaza, Israel has elevated Gaza. And now Sinwar has been killed. If you want people not to talk about Gaza, well, they're going to be talking about Gaza for a long time now. And it's not just that. You continue to do military operations that are resulting in dead Israelis. And so, boom, 5 dead here, 11 dead here, 30 wounded here. It's not just in Lebanon that's happening, in Gaza on a daily basis. So, yeah, that was the goal of Netanyahu was to divert attention away. But you'll never be able to close the world's eyes to the genocide and the ongoing crimes against humanity that are being perpetrated by Israel against the Palestinians on a daily basis. No amount of diversion can do that.
And the final question of the day is, Scott, if we see that America is losing big time in its proxy war against Russia and Ukraine, and we see that it's not going so well for her in Israel in the regional conflagration that is ongoing in West Asia, what sense does it make for the United States to then focus on China to try to wage war with China, especially when China is your number one trade partner, investor, and you get 95% of all your goods from China? How is that even sane or rational?
It's not. It's insane. It's irrational. But moreover, it's becoming 100% in the realm of fantasy. The Chinese took a look at what happened in Ukraine, and there's a couple lessons that came out of this. First of all, for all those people that say that, Russia invaded Ukraine and was looking to, conquer Ukraine and seize their territory, the facts are far different. Russia didn't go to war against Ukraine. Russia carried out what's called a special military operation. Their purpose wasn't to destroy Ukraine, but to compel Ukraine to go to the negotiating table to come about with a rapid, equitable peace solution that wasn't designed to steal territory away from Ukraine. Yes, Ukraine lost Crimea. Sorry, Ukraine, you lost that in 2014 when you sent the neo-Nazis in to murder the Russians that lived there. They joined Russia. And you lost the Donbass, the same thing. The rape of Mariupol will go down in history as one of the greatest crimes perpetrated by people against their own people, what the Ukrainian Nazis, the Azov battalion, did to the citizens of Mariupol. One day, the truth will be told. The West will find out about these crimes, the ongoing crimes committed against the other Russian speakers of Donbass and Lugansk, of Donetsk and Lugansk. Ukraine lost the right to have any say over that, but Russia wasn't looking to do anything other than protect Russians. 6 days after Russia went in on the special military operation, Ukraine was at the negotiating table. For all you people out there saying Russia got their butts kicked early on, Russia did exactly what Russia was supposed to do. Go in there, make a statement, drive the Ukrainians to the negotiating table, and in a month and a half later, they achieved what could have been a lasting peace, the Istanbul Communique, initialed by both parties. In Ukraine, you have people talking about how they were popping the champagne corks because the war was over, but the West wouldn't let the war end, and now we've dragged on. And now we're at where we're at. China's looked at and said, I guess we don't want to go in slow. That's sort of the lesson. If we're going to do Taiwan, do it quick. Get it over with, instantly. Now, one of the things that they might have had an unknown about is, well, how good is the missile defense system that's guarding Taiwan? Well, the Iranians just showed that it doesn't work. The one guarding Taiwan isn't as good as the one guarding Israel, and the one guarding Israel doesn't work. So the Chinese now know that they can, within a matter of days, eliminate Taiwan as a functioning, defensible entity. That's just the reality of it. They don't even have to land troops on. Within 3 days of initiating the missile-based bombardment of Taiwan, Taiwan is finished. China knows it can deploy its naval forces around Taiwan to effect an immediate blockade, but a blockade won't matter because after the 3 days of taking down the Taiwanese defense capabilities, China will flood Taiwan with troops, and within a week or so, Taiwan will be conquered. There might be people up in the hills fighting. They will be hunted down and killed. But overall, Taiwan will be finished. And now as the United States spends 9 months trying to mobilize brigades, get equipment out, produce the ammunition that it doesn't have because we gave it away to Ukraine, and put them on a ship and start taking them towards Taiwan, the Chinese will be on there raising the flag saying, it belongs to us. What are you going to do about it? There's nothing we can do about it. So this is the reality. The Pentagon knows this. Everybody knows this. And I think you're going to see going forward leadership that reflects this reality. Because the Taiwanese are going to have to wake up to the knowledge that America can't save them. And the second we start moving in a direction that appears they were trying to change that calculus, China will step in militarily and end this problem. China doesn't want that. China says that its number one goal is the peaceful reunification, but they also say that if it looks like Taiwan is going to self-identify as an independent state, or nations are going to treat Taiwan as a de facto independent state, that we will move in and force them to have a recalculation. And that'll be, I believe the Chinese are now looking for the rapid, with an emphasis on rapid, defeat of Taiwan and resolution of this problem. China is looking at Ukraine saying, we're not going to let this thing drag out. Time is our enemy. We're going to take care of this problem right off the bat. What Russia should have done in retrospect. I know why Putin did what he did, because he's a man who believes in international law. He wasn't looking to conquer Ukraine, but I think could he go back in time knowing everything that he knows right now, I think he would have seen a very different military operation on February 24th.
Oh man, once again, we have to bow to the busiest guy on YouTube. Scott, thank you for giving us your time, man. I really appreciate it. I'm going to shoot you the link to the show in just a few minutes, man. I really appreciate it.
I'll get it out. Well, thanks for having me. And it's been too long, man. It's been too long. It's my fault. I'll do my best. Yeah, I had little distractions, the FBI knocking on my door and things like that. But we've overcome, and we will continue on. So let's stay in touch, and it's always a pleasure to talk with you and to interact with your audience.
All right, be safe, Scott.
Okay, thanks.
All right, everybody, listen. Hit the like button, please. Hit the like button. I just got a shout out from Carl Zah. We'll be having him back on the platform. We may try to schedule for later today. If not later today, sometime in the coming days. We got Mike Mihalovich coming up. We have Helen Beninsky from RT coming up. We have Gregory Manarino coming back on. We have, oh man, it's a list of them. I'm trying to run them out of my head. I cannot even think. I don't have my little book here. But we have a lot coming up for you guys in the coming days and weeks. We want you to share, because we got to beat the algorithm. Go to all of the platforms and sign up. You can be a paid or just a free member on our Patreon. That's patreon.com/the Red Pill Diaries. Join us on Locals. That's the empowerment of truth.locals.com. Join us on Twitter or X, Rumble, Twitch. I don't know how to navigate Telegram, but we have a Telegram. So some of you are going to have to get on there and sign up for our Telegram and then tell us how to navigate it, because I'm trying to figure this stuff out. And especially on our sister channel, just in case we're suspended on YouTube, our sister channel is the Red Pill Journals. We are the Red Pill Diaries. I want to take the time out right now to thank each and every one of you for giving me your time, because time is the most precious and the most valued commodity. It is an unrenewable resource. So when you give your time, especially to us, we hope that we can give you an equal or greater value in knowledge, wisdom, and understanding on all types of events, so that we can pay the cost for your time that you spent with us. Thank you all from the bottom of my heart to the depth of my soul. I want to take the time out to thank everybody, because none of this is possible without the mercy and grace of Almighty God. With that being said, do right by others, not because others are watching, but because it's the right thing to do. And on that note, know that I love each and every one of you who loves truth, but know that the love that I have for you will always pale in comparison to the love that God has for you. Until we next speak again, stay strong, stay true, but above all things, remember, stay righteous. Hey, mama, your baby boy loves you more than life. Deuces, everybody. Thank you so much. We're out of here. Peace.